You know, I can get used to new balance updates to StarCraft 2 every other week, although I think this particular list, it's not it. So, before we jump into the changes, real quick, this is the current state of things, okay? Zerg is overpowered, Protoss is confused, they don't really know what to do in the early game, and Terrans, they have been complaining. And you know what? While the first two maybe new, the last one not so much, it turns out complaining is a great thing, because look at this absolutely ridiculous change. I massively disagree with this. So the command center cost has been reduced from 400 to 300 minerals. As far as I know, in the 16 years that StarCraft 2 has been around for, and probably since, well, 1998, when StarCraft 1 was released, they have never adjusted the cost of the command center. Down to 300 minerals. Let's talk about the gameplay implications. We'll talk about everything, of course, but this is by far the biggest change here. We get some nice Protoss buffs as well, but this right here is insane to me. So, we don't really get any explanation, right, as to why they're making these changes. The only thing that we really have to go off of is that 5.0.16, so this is 5.0.16b, 5.0.16 was supposed to increase variety. Now, what does that mean? Well, they wanted to reduce from a 12-worker start to an 8-worker start, meaning that you have more early game variety because the game is a little bit slower. At least in theory, that was the plan. Everybody at a high level would disagree with that right from the outset, but now we're forced to make all these adjustments that really feel to me counterintuitive to the original goal. So obviously reducing the cost of the command center, right? It's a huge buff to Terran. It's gonna make Terran better against both Protoss as well as against Zerg. Especially against Zerg, I think this is gonna be absolutely massive because Terrans tend to make a lot of command centers. But this also means that the very first command center that you make as a Terran, say you want to go depot into command center or barracks into command center, it's gonna come out like 6-7 or so seconds sooner. That's massive. So imagine you're a Zerg player and you open up pool first. Usually you kind of try to sneak a couple Zerglings around the map, potentially kill the SCV that's building the command center. No more. You can't really do that anymore. It's already something that you can very easily counter as a Terran by going SCV scout before you send the Reaper across. Pool first is already losing popularity over the last week. No more. The same for Terran versus Protoss. Any sort of Zealot opener or Zealot into Adept, same problem. The command center is going to be done sooner, so therefore, in my mind at the very least, this is going to reduce the variety. I mean, we already haven't seen really that much more variety, but this is really because we reduce, and a lot of these changes are, because we reduced the starter work account, we have to deal with all of these things. We have to now suddenly make all of these adjustments. And this one just seems insane to me. Now, to counteract it, Planetary Fortress cost increase from 150 to 250. Who cares? By the time... Sorry, I'm going to be very harsh this video, apparently, but seriously, this is kind of dumb. By the time you're making a Planetary Fortress, which usually should be on your 4th base as Terran, 100 minerals is not really that impactful anymore. If you're going to reduce the cost of the command center, maybe add the additional minerals to the orbital command instead. But honestly, this is all kind of dumb. And I'll come up with my solution in just a moment, okay? This right here, mostly irrelevant. And then we're apparently also changing this back. Once again, the ghost supply has been reduced from 3 to 2. If you're a StarCraft 2 boomer like myself, you may remember that Blizzard kept changing the bunker build time back in Wings of Liberty. One patch it was 5 seconds more, then the next patch it was 5 seconds less, and more and more. Apparently this is the new bunker build time right over here, except it has far more gameplay implications. This, combined with this, what do you think Terran versus Zerg is going to be like? Yes, Zerg is overpowered right now. I think everybody agrees with that, but I think you could just reduce the larva spawn rate a little bit or make some other small adjustments or maybe nerf Zerg a little bit. Instead, we're doing all of this. Obviously, this is going to make Terrans make a lot of command centers, and obviously this is going to increase turtling just across the board, right? Now, unless the goal is to increase the amount of turtling that we have in StarCraft, this is not it. This is going to, in my opinion, and we'll see how this plays out, but in my opinion, this is going to reduce variety and increase turtling. I don't really know who's asking for this. This seems insane to me. You know how we could fix all of this? You know how we could really change up the meta and fix a lot of these problems? Revert the worker start count. just go back from 8 to 12. It was a nice experiment, but clearly it's not really worked out. We are forced to make all of these weird adjustments. Build orders don't really feel very good because you now have a lot of like worker cut time, and if you like go for a Reaper build, you can't immediately start up a Reaper. If you're a Zerg player as well, like the builds just don't line up. The thing is, right, when Blizzard first increased from a 6 to a 12 worker start count with the introduction of Legacy of the Void, they did a lot of testing, right? They made sure that the game felt good. And this is not really something that really has a lot of balance implications and a lot of gameplay implication, I guess, but the game just doesn't really feel as smooth and as satisfying to play right now. We're effectively adding a band-aid on top of a lot of solutions, and I guess it kind of works, but we could also just go back to a 12-worker start, keep some of the interesting changes from 5.0 with 16, like, for example, the gateways. I think that's pretty fun, but we could do away with a lot of this crap, man. Anyways, let's go to the Protoss changes. So the Colossus damage has been increased. This, I think, is a good change. It's going to make the Colossus significantly better across the board. So rather than a very specialized anti-light unit, so that would be, for example, like Marines and Zerglings, it's going to specifically be better now against, for example, Roaches or, for example, Marauders. And I think that's fair. The Colossus in general has kind of felt bad to me, so changing this one up, I don't mind it whatsoever. This is another one of those changes that I think is going to do very little. So the Adept damage modifier per attack upgrade increased from 1 to +1 versus light to 2 +2 versus light. What this basically means is that Adepts are going to scale better with upgrades. Now, we're not really likely to see any additional Adept follow-ups in any of the matchup, at least not that I can really think of, because the main reason that Adepts don't scale late into the game is because Zealots and Stalkers do the job better, right? Like, if you want to make a ranged unit, the Stalker is better. If you want to do worker harassment, the Zealot is cheaper, it's faster, it's just better across the board. Maybe there's some weird niche interaction that I'm not immediately thinking of that suddenly makes the Adept way more potent, and maybe there's some like timing attacks against Zerg where the Adept might be more viable, but whatever. I really don't think this is going to do much. Gateway unit train time reduction bonus from researching Warp Gate increases from 40 to 50%. So this, I think, is a really good change, although... And this really is something that I like the frequency of the patches, don't get me wrong, but we're already seeing Protoss players stick around on just regular gateways for far longer right now, right? So when the patch was first introduced, we stubbornly saw a lot of Protoss players just pay the gateway tax to transform it into a warp gate and spent the 25 minerals and 25 gas to get the additional production out that way. We're already seeing Protoss players scale that back a lot. Right now, if you're going to increase this to 50%, I'm pretty sure what this means is that you're no longer ever really want to go warp gates until later on. So if the intention, and again, we don't get any description or intention or any explanation behind any of these changes, but if the intention is indeed that Protoss players go warp gates early on, but don't transition their gateways into the warp gate at all. They just want to produce, and then maybe when they get aggressive, they spend the warp gate tax, they warp in units on the other side of the map. If the goal is then to have Protoss players transform their warp gates back into gateways and continue production after an aggressive push has happened out of a regular gateway, kind of like what Terrans do, yeah, this will probably achieve that goal. Now, I agree with a lot of Protoss players that warping in units really has been the main identity of Protoss for all of StarCraft 2, and I think it's really unique. I think it's really cool, right? You have Zerg producing stuff out of larva, you have Protoss warping in, and you have Terrans producing, well, like every other RTS game out there. This definitely does reduce the... How do you say that? I guess like the lore of Protoss, like the fantasy of Protoss definitely gets reduced with this. I think it's fun as far as gameplay goes, and I think it's a really interesting set of changes. I personally like seeing Protoss players experiment with this. Now, I know that there's a lot of players out there that really dislike this change altogether because it's forcing you to basically relearn the entirety of the early game. I personally like it, but I can see where other folks are coming from, but I'm secretly hoping that this is something that we will have, especially now with this change as well. So the gateway and warp gate transformation duration is now always 4 seconds. So you can flip and flop between a gateway and a warp gate very easily. This is something that I, again, have strong opinions on. So the Disruptor Phantom weapon range has been decreased from 11.35 to 7. This is another training wheel that we have added to StarCraft 2, right? It's kind of like the High Templar auto attack, the Infestor auto attack. I know, again, a lot of people disagree with me, but I don't like the idea of adding training wheels to units that are supposedly difficult to use. Why? I don't know. In my mind, StarCraft is a very beautiful game when everything goes according to plan, right? When you've got a game and you... There's a hair on top of my nose. Not good. I could see it from the corner of my eye. You got a game that you jump into and you have a plan, and when you execute the plan perfectly, when everything runs smoothly, your build order lines up, your micro makes sense, it feels incredible, right? But now the early game doesn't feel particularly smooth. You have units with lots of training wheels that just make them easier to micro. The game feels less satisfying across the board to me personally. Now, obviously, your mileage may vary, right? Like, your experience may differ from my own, but I feel like a lot of these changes are not a step in the right direction. But again, we don't really know the intention behind it, right? So it says we're making changes based on player data and feedback. Well, there's been a lot of feedback. A lot of player data, I guess, too. We are now calibrating both Protoss and Terran to help deal with Zerg. We will continue to monitor and make changes if necessary. I feel like the change you make is you reduce, or rather you increase the starter work account back up to 12. You remove the larva change and you keep some of the interesting stuff. It's been a nice experimentation, but really I feel like it would be much easier to just revert a whole lot of the changes, go to 5.0.17, and keep some of the interesting stuff that this patch has clearly introduced, but... Alright, we also have some quality of life changes. Now, remember the bug with the tank evac drops? Loading nearby transport ability has been reverted. So you can now no longer press the button on medevacs to quickly load up units, and it's the same for War Prisms and for Overlords. It's another one of those training wheel upgrades, right? Like, in my mind, again... There's skill expression in being able to smoothly pick up your medevac drops. So just pressing one button and having all the medevacs perfectly pick up units. I personally don't like it. Now, every time, man, like, I've made videos about this in the past. I always get called out in the comment section for being a gaming elitist, that I am intentionally trying to keep StarCraft a difficult game mechanically. Maybe some of that is true, but... I don't know. I just feel like when do you stop, right? Like, how much do you add before StarCraft 2 just kind of turns into like an auto battler, kind of like Hearthstone or something, right? Like direct strike. At what point does it become everything is automated? Like, when do we start automatically giving queens queen inject, right? When do we keep chrono boost stacked? Like, how many training wheels do you want to add? I think you want to reduce it, honestly. But again, apparently many people disagree. Gateway train visuals will no longer trigger if effects graphics options are set to low. Fix an issue where workers interacted incorrectly with allied structures. Warp gates now have a selection subgroup priority over gateways, okay? Warp gates and gateways are now considered distinct units when selecting all commands. Gateways and warp gates can now be issued orders to transform regardless of which the primary subgroup selection. Reverted spawned hallucinations inheriting their caster's order queue. Selection radius color is now distinct for primary subgroup selection when colorblind mode is enabled, and fix an issue in team games where cyclones could fail to deal damage to units detected by an ally. Most of this is irrelevant. The top one is definitely, like, I know some people are going to be kind of upset about this, but shouldn't really matter too much. You can just hotkey. But yeah, this definitely obviously is a actual balance implication and certainly a direct nerf to medevacs, but I think it's actually good to just remove the ability altogether. This, man, this just is very tone deaf to me. Like, reducing the command center cost from 400 to 300 and then somehow increasing the cost of the Planetary to make up for it. They definitely know that Terrans make like 3 Planetary Fortress in a long game, right? And then like 15 orbital commands, right? Like, this... I don't know. If this is supposed to reduce turtling, then this is certainly not gonna make up for it. It's the same for the Ghost supply, man. Like, pick a number and stick with it, please. I like the Protoss changes across the board. These... Yeah, I agree, Terran needs a buff, but I think what you could do is just nerf Zerg instead. Like, if the real issue, right, that has introduced most of these problems is the passive spawn rate of larvae on a hatchery. So it used to be 10.7, they reduced it to 9.0, and then they adjusted it again. I feel like you could maybe adjust it to like 10.3 or 10.4 or something. All right, so anyways, how do I now picture the matchups, right? Protoss versus Terran. It's probably gonna be mostly okay, but possibly Terran favored. Probably Terran favored, actually, because again, this really is just going to be such a big buff. We don't really see a lot of command centers in TVP, but I am predicting that this is going to be quite a bit better for Terran across the board, and it already seemed to sort of be headed in that direction with the new patch. Protoss versus Zerg. Small buff for Protoss, certainly, but not massively. I still think Protoss versus Zerg is going to be Zerg favored, just because the Zerg early game is so bloody powerful right now. Terran versus Zerg is, I think, probably the most affected matchup. Right now, it is in favor of Zerg. I think it's going to completely flip. We're likely going to see a lot of turtle games from Terran going up against Zerg. They're going to make a million command centers, and with a million, I mean about 20. And then max out on ghosts. Get their unstoppable pew-pews in with the snipe ability, and yeah, Zerg is not going to be able to really do too much. I don't know. I really think this is not good. Either way, let me know your thoughts down below in the comment section. Should they revert back to the 12-worker start? The way it feels to me right now, right, is, look, we had a cool idea reducing the starter worker count. It's been mentioned and parroted by people many times over the years. We gave it a try. Clearly, it's not really had the intention that we meant to have, so maybe we should revert. Instead, what we're doing with these last couple of changes, with these last couple of what they're calling hotfixes, is we are doubling down on a mistake. And I think in general, in life, doubling down on mistakes is not usually the way to go. Either way, let me know your thoughts down below. I'll try and get you games as soon as possible. I do have, I think, 2, maybe 3 or so casts already done on, I guess, 5.0.16a. So those videos will be going up over the next couple of days. And if I can, I will try to get you, well, at least in a week or so, I will have replays available for 5.0.16b. Yeah, I don't think TVZ is going to be any better, and I don't think TVP is going to be that much better either. But anyways, we can figure it out, I guess, at the time. But yeah, I'll try to give you as many games in the next couple of weeks as possible, so we can see exactly how these changes come into effect.